There's a difference between being nice and being honest. And that difference defines the quality of every relationship you have, both personal and professional. Being nice is about comfort. It's about making sure everyone feels good in the moment. It's about avoiding conflict, smoothing the edges, and keeping the atmosphere pleasant. But honesty, real honesty, is about growth. It's about facing what's true, even when it's inconvenient, even when it might make someone uncomfortable. Nice focuses on now. Honest focuses on what's right. We live in a world that rewards politeness. From childhood, we're told, be nice. Don't make anyone upset. Don't argue. Don't say anything that might hurt someone's feelings. Those lessons sound good. They keep us out of trouble. They make us agreeable. But they also teach us to hide, to suppress truth, to hold back feedback, to silence our real opinions. We start to confuse being agreeable with being kind, as if kindness means avoiding truth at all costs. The irony is, this kind of niceness often does more harm than good. Imagine a friend who's making a serious mistake, maybe in their job, their relationship, or their decisions. You see it clearly. You know they're heading toward pain. But instead of saying something, you tell yourself, I don't want to hurt them. I'll just stay quiet. You smile, you nod, you act nice. And then one day, when everything falls apart, you realize your silence didn't protect them. It only delayed their pain. Sometimes the truth that stings today of someone from suffering tomorrow. In leadership, this difference is even more critical. A nice leader tells people what they want to hear. They avoid confrontation, hoping to keep morale high. But a leader who is honest builds a foundation of trust, because honesty communicates respect. It says, I care enough about you to tell you the truth. I believe you can handle it. When people know you'll tell them what's real, even if it's not pleasant, they begin to trust you in a deeper way. They stop guessing what you really think. They stop walking on eggshells. They know where they stand. That's how strong teams are built, not through constant agreement, but through transparent truth. Being honest doesn't mean being harsh. Honesty without empathy becomes cruelty. But honesty with empathy becomes clarity. It's about how you deliver truth with compassion, with understanding, and with the intention to help, not harm. The goal isn't to win an argument. The goal is to help someone see what they couldn't see before, to elevate, not to embarrass, to heal, not to hurt. When you're nice, people may like you for a moment. When you're honest, people may resist you at first, but they'll respect you for life. The people who truly care about your growth won't always tell you what feels good to hear. They'll tell you what you need to hear. That's real love. That's real leadership. So many relationships break down not because of lies, but because of unspoken truths. The things we didn't say. The moments we swallowed our words in the name of being nice. The truths we buried because we feared how someone might react. But silence doesn't erase truth, it only postpones it. And the longer it's hidden, the heavier it becomes. Being honest is an act of courage. It takes vulnerability to speak your truth. It takes strength to risk being misunderstood. But when honesty becomes your standard, your relationships shift. You attract people who value authenticity over appearance, depth over comfort. You stop performing and start connecting. Because the truth, even when it's hard, builds something. Nice never can a trust. Most people don't hate the truth. They hate the conflict that comes with it. We're taught to believe that avoiding conflict keeps relationships peaceful. But peace built on silence isn't peace. It's just tension waiting for a trigger. When you avoid difficult conversations, you don't eliminate the problem, you just bury it deeper. And buried truth doesn't disappear, it festers. It leaks out later as resentment, distance, and misunderstanding. Conflict avoided is never conflict resolved. It's simply truth delayed. We avoid confrontation because it's uncomfortable. It challenges our sense of control. It forces us to face emotions we'd rather not feel. Disappointment, guilt, anger, fear. So we tell ourselves, it's not worth the drama, or I'll let it go. But deep down, we rarely do. We hold on to the unspoken words, the unmet expectations, the unresolved tension. And slowly, the relationship becomes more about pretending everything is fine than actually making things right. Avoiding conflict feels safe in the short term. It makes us look calm, composed, and easy to get along with. But it's a fragile kind of safety. The kind that collapses the moment truth demands attention. Because no matter how much you avoid it, truth has a way of resurfacing. It might show up in the form of passive-aggressive comments, silent treatment, or sudden emotional distance. You might find yourself feeling irritated by the smallest things, not realizing that your frustration isn't about those small moments. It's about the big truth you refused to face earlier. True growth in yourself, your relationships, or your leadership only begins when you stop running from difficult conversations. Every uncomfortable conversation you avoid becomes a wall between you and the other person. Every truth you postpone becomes a weight you carry. And every time you choose silence over honesty, you trade authenticity for temporary comfort. That comfort doesn't last. It's borrowed peace, paid back later with interest and regret. Think about the leader's friends or mentors who changed your life. They weren't the ones who agreed with you all the time. They were the ones who told you something you didn't want to hear, but needed to. Maybe it hurt in the moment. Maybe you even resisted it. But later, you realized that conversation changed everything. It made you better. It helped you grow. That's the power of confronting truth early instead of postponing it. In every relationship, whether personal or professional, truth builds trust. But only if it's spoken. Silence doesn't protect relationships, it weakens them. When you avoid conflict, you create uncertainty. People start to sense something's wrong, but they can't name it. They start guessing, assuming, overthinking. That's how trust erodes, not because of what's said, but because of what's left unsaid. Having a difficult conversation isn't about proving you're right. It's about making space for understanding. It's about saying, this matters enough to talk about. You're not fighting against someone, you're fighting for the relationship, for the truth, for growth. When you approach conflict with empathy and clarity, it transforms from confrontation into connection. It takes courage to sit in the discomfort of disagreement. It takes maturity to listen, even when emotions run high. But that's where real communication lies, in the tension between what's easy and what's true. The people who learn to face difficult conversations don't live easier lives. They live cleaner ones, free from the heavy residue of unspoken truths. You can't build strong relationships on postponed honesty. Every time you delay the truth, you extend the distance between who you are and what you really feel. You might think you're protecting others from pain, but what you're really protecting is your own fear. Fear of rejection, of judgment, of conflict. And that fear becomes the quiet architect of broken trust. When you face the hard conversation today, you prevent a bigger one tomorrow. When you tell the truth early, you free yourself from pretending. Because in the end, unresolved conflict doesn't vanish, it waits. And the longer it waits, the louder it becomes. Most people think kindness is about keeping others comfortable, saying the gentle thing, avoiding disagreement, maintaining harmony. But real kindness isn't about comfort, it's about courage. Courage is what allows you to tell the truth when silence would be easier. It's what pushes you to care enough about someone to risk being misunderstood. Courage is kinder than comfort because it serves a deeper form of love, the kind that seeks growth, not approval. We often choose comfort because it's easy, it feels safe. When you choose comfort, you don't have to deal with tension. You don't have to face rejection. You don't have to explain yourself. But comfort also keeps you small. It keeps relationships shallow. It builds a world where everything looks fine on the surface, but feels hollow underneath. People say what they think others want to hear. Leaders avoid hard feedback. Friends avoid honest advice. Families avoid the topics that matter most. And before long, the truth suffocates under the weight of politeness. Courage, on the other hand, disrupts that illusion. Courage asks you to step into discomfort with compassion. It asks you to speak the truth not to wound, but to awaken. It means saying, I care about you too much to let this slide. It means being willing to stand in the fire of discomfort for the sake of clarity and authenticity. Imagine a manager who sees one of their team members struggling but says nothing. They don't want to embarrass them. They don't want to create tension. They stay quiet, hoping things will fix themselves. That's comfort disguised as kindness. But a leader who steps in, who sits that person down, acknowledges their effort, and then shares what's not working, that's courage. It might be uncomfortable in the moment, but it gives that person a chance to grow. It says, I believe in you enough to tell you the truth. That's kindness in its highest form. The same is true in friendships, in families, in love. Courage is telling your friend that they're losing themselves in a toxic relationship. It's telling your partner when something feels wrong, instead of pretending it's fine. It's telling your parents how you truly feel, even when your voice shakes. These are not acts of rebellion, they are acts of love. Because pretending protects nobody. Pretending only delays the healing that honesty could begin. Courageous kindness doesn't always sound gentle. Sometimes it sounds like truth spoken with trembling words. Sometimes it looks like stepping away from something that's draining you. Sometimes it's setting a boundary that others don't like. But courage never comes from cruelty. It comes from care. It's the willingness to choose what's right over what's easy. Think about it. Every meaningful transformation in life begins with discomfort. Growth is uncomfortable. Healing is uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. The only reason we grow is because we face something we'd rather avoid. And yet, that's where real kindness lies. In helping ourselves and others step into discomfort for the sake of something better. If you always choose comfort, you never stretch beyond your current limits. You remain polite, predictable, and unchanged. But courage creates movement. It stirs things up. It allows honesty to breathe. It invites depth into relationships and authenticity into leadership. When you act with courage, people may not thank you immediately, but over time, they'll understand. They'll remember the moment you chose to be brave instead of agreeable, and they'll respect you for it. Courage is what builds trust, because trust isn't built on compliments or comfort. It's built on truth and consistency. People might not always like what you say, but if they know your words come from a place of integrity, they'll believe you. And belief is the seed of trust. In a world that tells you to be nice, courage is revolutionary. It's what separates those who maintain appearances from those who create change. It's the difference between those who please people and those who lead them. When you choose courage over comfort, you're choosing to love honestly, to lead authentically, and to live fully awake. Respect is not earned through agreement. It's earned through truth. You don't respect people because they always see things your way. You respect them because they have the courage to stand by what they believe, even when it's different from yours. Agreement is comfortable. Truth is courageous. Agreement makes you feel good for a moment, but truth builds trust that lasts a lifetime. We often think people will like us more if we just agree with them. So we nod, we smile, we pretend to see things the same way. It feels easier than challenging someone. It keeps the air light, the relationship smooth. But over time, that false harmony becomes fragile. You start to lose your voice. You start to lose your authenticity. And deep down, you know that the relationship isn't built on mutual respect. It's built on mutual avoidance. True respect comes from seeing someone's honesty, not their compliance. Think about the people you admire most. They're not the ones who always agree with you. They're the ones who are brave enough to tell you what you need to hear. They're the ones who push you, challenge you, question you. They don't do it to win or to prove you wrong. They do it because they care about truth more than comfort. That's where integrity lies, in the willingness to be real even when it risks approval. When you tell someone the truth, especially when it's hard, you're saying, I value you enough to be honest. That's respect. You're giving them the dignity of truth instead of the insult of pretending. People may not like what you say in that moment, but they'll remember that you respected them enough not to lie. Over time, that kind of honesty becomes the foundation of every meaningful relationship, whether it's between leaders and teams, parents and children, or friends and partners. In leadership, this principle is everything. A leader who seeks agreement builds followers. A leader who speaks truth builds leaders. Agreement makes people feel safe, but it doesn't help them grow. When a leader avoids telling the truth because they want to stay popular, they fail the very people they're trying to protect. But when they speak the truth with compassion, when they give feedback that's uncomfortable but necessary, they earn something far more powerful than popularity. They earn respect. The irony is that most people don't even want constant agreement. Deep down, we crave honesty. We want people who will tell us the truth, even if it's not what we want to hear. Because truth gives us clarity, and clarity gives us confidence. When you know someone is honest with you, you can trust their praise. You can trust their criticism. You can trust their silence. There's no guessing, no second guessing, no pretending. You know exactly where you stand. Disagreement doesn't have to mean disrespect. It can mean engagement. It can mean depth. It can mean you both care enough about the subject to explore it honestly. Some of the best relationships are built on respectful disagreement because both sides are grounded in honesty, not ego. They can disagree fiercely and still value each other deeply. That's what happens when truth, not agreement, is the foundation. When everyone around you only agrees, you stop learning. You stop growing. You start believing you're always right, and that's the most dangerous illusion of all. Growth happens in tension, in the friction between perspectives, in the willingness to listen and to speak truthfully. Respect thrives in that space, not in the silence of artificial harmony. Being honest doesn't mean being confrontational. It means being authentic. It means knowing when to speak, how to speak, and why you're speaking. When truth comes from empathy, it connects instead of divides. It builds bridges instead of walls. Because when people feel your intention, that your words come from care, not ego, they listen. They may not agree, but they'll respect you. Respect is not about everyone thinking the same way. It's about knowing that, even in disagreement, you stand on common ground, the ground of honesty. That's where real connection begins. Agreement fades, approval changes, but truth earns respect that lasts long after the conversation ends. We teach people how to treat us by what we allow, what we accept, and what we ignore. Boundaries are not walls. They are bridges built from self-respect. They're not about shutting people out. They're about showing them where you begin and where they should stop. Without boundaries, kindness turns into exhaustion and generosity turns into resentment. You cannot expect others to respect you if you don't show them how. Many people confuse being nice with having no limits. They believe that saying yes to everything makes them kind, that being always available makes them caring, that never disagreeing makes them likable. But constant compliance isn't kindness, it's self-abandonment. When you keep giving from an empty place, when you keep saying yes just to avoid guilt or confrontation, you're not being kind to others, you're being cruel to yourself. Boundaries are the invisible lines that protect your energy, your peace, and your values. They tell others, this is what I stand for, this is what I can give, this is where I draw the line, and those who truly respect you will honor those limits. The ones who don't were never respecting you in the first place. They were respecting your compliance. Boundaries reveal the difference between those who love you and those who use you. In relationships, boundaries create clarity. They prevent confusion, manipulation, and emotional fatigue. Without them, people start to assume that your silence means agreement, that your kindness means unlimited access, that your forgiveness means permission. You begin to feel unseen, unheard, and unappreciated, not because others are cruel, but because you never showed them where to stop. A relationship without boundaries is like a house without walls. It may look open and inviting, but it cannot protect what's inside. In leadership, boundaries define credibility. When a leader tries to please everyone, they lose direction. When they fail to draw clear lines, they create chaos and inconsistency. But a leader with firm, fair boundaries earns respect because people know what to expect. They trust the consistency. They know the standard is the same for everyone. Boundaries don't limit leadership, they strengthen it. Having boundaries doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough to protect your ability to care. You can't pour from an empty cup. When you overextend yourself for everyone, you burn out, and burnout doesn't produce kindness, it produces resentment. Boundaries ensure that when you give wholeheartedly, not resentfully. Sometimes the hardest part about setting boundaries is the guilt that follows. You feel selfish for saying no, or worried that people will think you've changed. But growth always changes your boundaries. The things you once tolerated no longer align with who you are. That's not selfish, that's self-awareness. Every no to something that drains you is a yes to something that strengthens you. People who truly value you will not punish you for having boundaries. They'll appreciate you for it. Because boundaries bring honesty into relationships. They remove the guessing game. They allow people to understand your needs and your limits, and that understanding creates deeper respect. It's not about controlling others, it's about managing yourself. Boundaries don't push people away. They draw the right ones closer. The people who stay are those who value your honesty, your energy, and your peace. They don't need you to be constantly available to feel cared for. They just need you to be real. And you can only be real when you're not stretched thin trying to please everyone around you. Learning to set boundaries is an act of maturity. It means you've realized that you can't control how others feel about your decisions, but you can control what you tolerate. You no longer give energy to proving your goodness through sacrifice. You start showing it through self-respect, because respect doesn't start with others. It starts with you. Boundaries are not about distance, they are about definition. They define how you love, how you lead, and how you live. Without them, you lose your voice in the noise of everyone else's expectations. With them, you find your strength. You learn that peace doesn't come from pleasing others. It comes from staying true to yourself. We spend so much of our lives trying to be like that we forget to be real. We try to fit into conversations, workplaces, and relationships by showing the version of ourselves that we think will be accepted.